Hello and welcome to the Otaku Network Podcast. My name is Steve.
I'm David.
And we are here with the first episode of the 2025 winter anime season. So we've got 3 new shows we're going to talk about. My pick for the season is the original story by MAPPA called Zenshu. David's pick for the season is based on the dark fantasy manga Übel Blatt. And then our joint pick is based on the manga Sakamoto Days. So I guess without further ado, we will get into episodes 1 and 2 of Zenshu. Zenshu deals with a talented anime director named Hirose Natsuko, who after directing a very successful anime series is given the ability to create a new movie of her own. She's struggling with writing the story itself, and one day while she's stressing over her storyboards, she ends up eating a spoiled lunch and collapsing to the floor of the animation studio, only to wake up in a mysterious place. Before she can figure out what's going on, a giant creature heads towards her to attack. She recognizes it as being the foes in an anime that was very instrumental for her in her childhood called The Tale of Perishing. To confirm that she apparently is in the world of this anime, the heroes from it show up and rescue her from this creature known as a void. The leader of the party is a human warrior by the name of Luke Braveheart, and immediately gets angry at her, seeing her as nothing more than a thrill seeker who has put herself into danger and caused them to have to intervene for her safety. Luke, his best friend, which is a magical unicorn named Unio, and another one of their compatriots, an elven huntress, they leave Natsuko to her own devices and fly off towards a city in the distance. Natsuko makes it back to the town and discovers that there is a banquet being held in celebration for a recent victory. There is an old goblin sage who starts to recite this elegy, and Natsuko is able to speak along with it verbatim to herself because it's exactly as it happened in the anime from what she remembers. So coming to terms with the fact that she essentially has been isekai'd into her favorite anime as a child, she decides she's going to try to use her knowledge of what's happening in the storyline to try to influence it in a more positive manner. She approaches the heroes as they're at the head of the banquet, and Luke pretty much dismisses her and tells her to leave. She tries to warn him of an attack by the voids that's imminent, but they don't want anything to do with this weirdo who apparently is a thrill seeker of sorts. As the banquet goes on, the voids suddenly attack, and Natsuko remembers that this is a point in the story where Unio sacrifices himself to save the others, leading Luke to fall into a spiral of depression. As the situation begins to get dire, an item that Natsuko ended up bringing with her to this world called her peg bar begins to talk to her, encouraging her to tap into powers within her, I guess you could say. Not really sure what's going on, she kind of follows along with its suggestions and suddenly goes through a pretty spectacular magical girl transformation sequence where she manifests a replica of her animation desk and suddenly is overcome by inspiration and quickly sketches out a storyboard. When she's done with that, it manifests through its magical abilities a kaiju that uses a breath weapon to destroy the attacking army, preventing Unio from having to sacrifice himself and saving the day. As the magic fades, she succumbs to the effort that she put into it and wakes up 3 days later, finding herself being cared for by Luke. Luke's incredibly curious now about this strange girl and her unusual abilities, and begins to question her about all sorts of things. Before long, the goblin sage calls them to come meet with her, and she tells them that she wants to induct Natsuko into the 9 soldiers. Luke absolutely refuses, not really liking her or trusting her, and comes up with a variety of excuses as to why she isn't eligible to be one of the 9 soldiers. Natsuko pretty much blows him off anyways, saying that she's not interested in all of the danger that's pending, particularly an upcoming void attack where they're going to be coming in through the air. Seeing as this is not something that they've done before, everyone's pretty much skeptical about this weird girl and her prophecies. Natsuko leaves the city and heads back to the spot where she had found herself within the world, trying to see if she can get back to her world. Even going so far as to pretty much like beg God, telling him that she'll do whatever he wants as long as he grants her this one wish. Eventually she gives up, realizing that her efforts are not very fruitful, and heads back to town because she's starving. Her nose essentially leads her back to the 9 soldiers' residence, because they're having dinner, and she begs to be let in and eat some food. They talk some more, and when they mention that the 9 soldiers get free room and board, her attention perks up because apparently her only motivator right now is eating, and she says that she'd be willing to consider joining. Luke is still skeptical and gives her the condition of, if you're correct in the attack that's coming and we win, then I guess I'll let you join. So they question her about the nature of the attack to try to build some tactics with it. She tells them about how they enter from giant flying voids and how in the course of the attack they destroy most of the crops around the city, causing a great famine and a lot of death of the civilians of the city. So with this knowledge in hand, they do some preparation beforehand, set up defenses, try to till as many of the crops as they can to try to keep them safe from the upcoming battle. Before long, though, just as she had predicted, the voids show up in the air and begin their relentless attack on the city. Even with their preparations, they're still overwhelmed by the ferocity of the attack. And at a certain point, Natsuko's peg bar begins talking to her again. She's like, "This'll be easy. I'll use the same creature that I used last time." And the peg bar chides her and says, "No reusing animation." So she has to stand there for a while she's trying to brainstorm another solution to this problem that she can animate. As the battle rages, it comes to her, and the magical transformation sequence repeats itself. What she animates this time is essentially a missile salvo similar to something you'd see in Gundam, and takes out the invaders, and she once again succumbs to her efforts, only to wake up a number of days later being tended for again by Luke. And that's pretty much where the first 2 episodes cut off.
The show's great. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's just a phenomenal love letter to anime in general. I mean, we've got the fantasy setting that's kind of like Final Fantasy. We have, the attention to detail of the animation studio. Natsuko is absolutely a magical girl.
Mm-hmm.
She goes through the transformation sequence. She's got her magical wand in the form of her pegboard.
Yeah, and having the little sparkliness flow through her. And I also like how each of the characters kind of like fits a trope too. Luke is the stern warrior, like
he's a dick.
He is a dick. And then there's Unio, who's like the comedic sidekick womanizer, because we get many scenes of him like being friendly with the ladies. Even with like Memlin, after Luke had offended her by saying that women can't join the 9 warriors. God. And then there's Memlin, the quiet, broody type. There's QJ, is that what it's called? Yeah, QJ, the little robot that...
he's based on a really familiar figurine from the Jomon people that were indigenous to Japan during the Bronze and Stone Age.
And then I also liked that they had the direct, like the head person at their studio as that side character too.
So when they showed her, or the analog of her again, representing as the woman who's running the inn and the place where all the 9 soldiers are staying, it made me consider the idea that all of this could actually be in Natsuko's brain instead of being isekai. Like, she may just be dreaming all of this shit up while she's, in a coma in a hospital bed somewhere.
There was a lot of death flags though.
Yeah, well, I mean,
especially at the beginning, when it's like, the famous director dies from food poisoning, and you're like,
the person that they were talking about in the news article that Natsuko was reading, she, was an older lady, so who knows? Maybe it was a kind of misdirection. Natsuko's young and relatively healthy, given how quickly she runs about throughout the entire episode.
Show is great so far. It hooked me within the first 10 minutes, which does have a very strong influence on my letter grade for this.
Oh, all right. So what are you thinking you're going to give it?
I'm giving it an A.
A, huh?
It is, for me, animes, it usually takes me like an episode or 2 to be like in it, like in there like swimwear. Sure. But this one, it was just like, it's so good. I love it. It's funny. The characters are awesome. I really like the main character. She's hilarious.
Yeah, she doesn't take any shit.
Yeah. She has just this
carefree,
I can't be asked attitude about everything, and it's just
yeah. She definitely knows what she wants.
I like how she's so food motivated. She's only doing this to eat anime food.
That's right. I forgot about the thing when she shows up at the banquet and she's like, that's the dish from A Tale of Perishing, and they take it away from her before she can eat it.
And then and at the very end, Luke's like feeding her all this food and she's just eating away at it, and she loves it. And potential love interest between those two. Yeah. The way Luke looked at her and smiled, I'm like, simp.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What's your letter grade, Steve?
I think I would give it an A-.
That is the highest you've ever rated one of these shows at the beginning.
It's just all around a really interesting story that covers a lot of different bases. It feels like the writers are picking a variety of concepts that they enjoy and just smoothly adding it into this open concept.
My pick for this season is Übel Blatt. Übel Blatt is the story of betrayal, destruction, Love's Lost. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know anything about Love's Lost yet. We kind of get this intro where we're introduced to the fact that a kingdom or an empire has given a series of 14 warriors magical weapons. And we get this background that a bunch of them die, either through just dying outright, or that 4 of them betrayed the empire and were killed. And what we're left with is 9 loyal warriors to this empire. We are in this scene where it seems like one of these traitors has had their eye taken out by the 9 warriors and is like cursing them, and is like, we were brothers in arms. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And we get a smash cut to like 700 years in the future.
Yeah, something like
roughly,
that.
Where we find this little pink-haired elven girl. She's trying to smuggle herself onto a ship so that she can be smuggled into the land
that houses the heroes.
The 9 heroes.
Yeah.
And we then get a very jarring cut to some warrior monks that are executing a series of stowaways, as these warrior monks are kind of the gatekeepers, if you will, for passage into the empire. You need their permission to enter this kingdom or country or whatever, and without that, you are a stowaway and executed. The pink-haired girl is caught, but before she can be executed, we are introduced to an elven boy with fairly long hair, dressed in armor, who calls this girl his sister, calls her Pee-Pee. The monk's not buying it. He's like, you guys don't look related at all. And the long-haired gentleman lies and it's like, oh, we have different moms. And again, the monk still doesn't buy it, is about to execute them, and we get introduced to a third character, another less long hair but long-haired character with an eye patch, who very quickly bribes the monk and is like, all right, kids, let's go. And this is when we get introduced to all of their names. The blonde elf with the very long hair is named Coenzel. And then the taller human character with the dark black hair is Weed. And the pink-haired girl keeps trying to introduce herself, but they just keep calling her Pee-Pee. So she is stuck with the name Pee-Pee. And they're talking, and Weed is trying to explain to them that he kind of needs them to not do what they're doing, because he's trying to also smuggle himself into the empire and to stop drawing fucking attention to themselves. As they're talking, Coenzel hears a group of these warrior monks trying to ambush them and throw Pee-Pee into the river. He does this to protect her, and then we get introduced to Coenzel's combat ability. And his insane combat ability allows him to kill, I think it was 10 of these warrior monks. And Weed is super impressed and takes both Coenzel and Pee-Pee to the woman who is supposed to smuggle him out of the country, and he wants to take these two with him. We end up at the bar where Weed is meeting with the lady in charge of smuggling him out of the country named Altea, and she runs this bar/brothel where the girls change Pee-Pee into a set of dry clothes, which is also just kind of a set of brothel clothes, which Weed is just like, what the fuck happened? At least the characters outside of the brothel pointed out how ridiculous it was to put her in that outfit. Coenzel gets called back to speak with Altea, and she is kind of like asking him why he wants to go into the country. And he's just kind of like, I want to meet with the 9 warriors, or the 9 heroes, 7 heroes, 9, 7. No, it's 7. I think I said 9 earlier.
Yeah, you did, because 9 is from Übel.
Yeah.
From
so it's
Zenshu.
The 9 warriors from Zenshu, the 7 heroes
From
in Übel Blatt. Why did we have to pick
two fantasy series? Yeah.
So he wants to meet the 7 heroes, and then the warrior monks ambush the heroes at this bar because the head monk has decided that he wants to root out the evil in his town. Another combat sequence unfolds. PP almost gets fucking murdered. Oh, there was that brutal scene with the halfling that like rooted them out, and they just fucking bat him to the side.
Yeah, he was the pigeon who squawked and led them to the bar, and then they're like, "Thanks for your service," and they hit him with a
spear,
with a warhammer.
So then they fight. The head monk escapes, and he,
for the most part, Cohenzel pretty much.
Yeah, Cohenzel
has almost everybody.
Cohenzel's killed like every hostile so
far. He's like flying through the air on a table. Like it was insane.
We do know who he is because the description of the anime tells us right away.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention to that. I don't know who he is.
So
I know he's on like a plot for revenge.
He is the character at the beginning, the one that got his eye cut out. If you read the synopsis on Netflix, it literally tells you that he is that character.
That's why he has the scar over his left eye.
Yes. We very quickly find out that he indeed is this character from the description of the anime, because he talks then about how he wants to kill the 7 warriors.
Yeah, he wants to destroy
instead
them.
of meeting them.
Yeah, instead of joining them.
Yeah, and they end up going through this tunnel to try to catch this airship where it's Altea, Weed, PP, and Cohenzel, and they come across this giant that has a penchant for eating women, and Cohenzel tries to just take it out in one hit, but his hide is very thick and he doesn't pierce it right away. He gets punched into the roof, revealing the dual moons, and he is
out for
his ruin has been smote onto a floor higher, and everyone thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
So Weed, in an attempt to protect PP and Altea, springs into action with his really cool. I liked his disc weapon.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And is fighting the monster and ends up cracking its forehead where Cohenzel had hit it. But while carrying PP, his reaction time is a little slower, and so he also gets thrown against a wall. Not dying though, just getting wounded a little bit. And right as we think that this monster is going to eat everyone, Cohenzel pops up and kills the monster. And they're like, "How are you fucking alive?" He's like, "I told you, it's a well moonlit night," which I'm assuming he gets regeneration from a full moon.
I'm pretty sure the moon,
because I think he's a dark elf.
The moon or moons definitely give him abilities.
So yeah, he kills this monster. He's like, "All right, we got a boat to catch," and then monster's body gets deleted by this huge magic spell, and one of the swordsmen appears with the head priest. Earlier in the episode, we found out that this head priest had grabbed that is one of the 7.
I thought he was a mercenary.
No, the monastery is financially supported by one of the 7.
Oh.
Because he has a magic sword. The magic swords are the heroes.
Got it. Okay.
God, was I the only one that paid attention to the opening sequence?
I was wondering why they kept talking, like it's been hundreds of years. None of these people are alive. The swords are the heroes.
I think the swords extend people's lives.
Okay. Off the bat, very little information was divulged in this first episode. There's a lot we've got to figure out.
So we don't know the level of power of the magic swords outside of it literally deleted the corpse of a monster that was basically impenetrable. And it ends right as we get introduced to Cohenzel and this one of the 7 heroes in a standoff.
Yeah. I
really enjoyed the first episode.
It was an interesting show, but again, it drops you into this world with very little information. You can tell right away that the introduction thing with the introduction of the heroes is telling you one version of the story versus what everybody believes.
Right.
So it's pretty much the idea that these 7 quote-unquote heroes are actually the traitors. And because there's no witnesses to their deeds, they have come back and have now claimed the mantle of virtuosity.
Right.
I will say one thing, though. You know what this felt like? Mm-hmm. This felt like this world exists in 40K.
It is very grimdark.
Very, very, very grimdark.
I could definitely see it. Like you just kind of change everything around a little bit. It'll literally fit into the Warhammer Fantasy universe. It's very grimdark. It's very not happy.
A number of people on the internet I've seen have put this on the level of Berserk as like a really good, brutal, dark fantasy story.
Okay.
So
I've never seen
apparently
Berserk, so.
I think you would enjoy Berserk.
I think Bridget told me that I should watch Berserk.
I've watched segments of it. I only know a scattering of the lore of Berserk. Berserk is a really messed up world. Yeah, we're dealing with a hero who was ejected in the past, or his sword was, whatever the case may be, and he's fighting against the corrupt powers that be who are holding on to control of everything through ill-gotten means, it seems.
Yep, I like it.
What kind of grade would you give it?
I went first for Zenshu, so.
Oh, the art's really nice. The barmaid looked like a sex doll. I'll give it a B.
I'll give it a solid B+. The fighting isn't as good as Orb.
The fighting in Orb is good because it's understated.
Yeah. There's also just there was a lot of like flash cuts.
Yeah, it's like super standard action sequences where it's like...
If the fighting would have been a little more fluid, I think I would have given it a B+, but the flash cut, now that you've mentioned it, I see it everywhere now.
Oh, when we brought it up with Ranma?
Yeah, and you've ruined anime for me.
I've ruined the current standard in combat in anime.
Yep, thank you. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. I liked the story.
I don't think there's enough of a story yet.
I liked the story we got so far.
Yeah, it's not
anything that was pertinent to the actual what was happening.
Yeah.
Was explained at a basal level, and I think as the story goes on, we're gonna get more droplet.
Oh yeah,
like even with Orb, we kind of got dropped right in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Granted, we have a little bit more background.
Because that's based on reality, so we're like, oh.
But there's still aspects of that reality that aren't real.
Correct.
And when it was important, they brought it up. So I feel like for example, imagine being Japanese and watching Orb and not having the best understanding of European history.
Sure. Yep.
Being dropped right into that, you're just like...
I like the duality of the story and the fact that at the same time they're showing the two different angles of what's happening in the world, or the perspectives. The perspective of the virtuous heroes, and then the perspective from Koenzel, who we assume knows what's really going on.
I also like that they wasted no time just jumping into action. As compared to my last pick, which was supposed to also be an action anime, the action was boom, right there. High levels, enjoyable. I felt invested watching it.
The scene where they bribe their way away from the bishop, and they're kind of trying to negotiate about grouping up so they can leave, so they can get smuggled out together. And all of a sudden, he shoves PP into the water and is like, 10, no, 12. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then the dudes show up. It's like, oh, right, okay. Hypersenses.
Yeah, he's an elf. So
yeah, and so like he just the idea of like, okay, gotta get her out of combat, gotta let him know how much we're dealing with. Let's do this. We're as prepared as we can be.
Yeah, and it really shows that this guy's been fighting for hundreds of years.
Yeah, his skills as a combatant are finely tuned.
Yeah, he knows when to have his guard up and down, and just the level of showing the experience of this character is awesome. Yeah, and I liked that.
One, because everybody looks at him because he looks like a kid.
Yeah,
and they're going to underestimate anything that he can do.
Right,
which is always going to play into his favor as well.
I really, really liked it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It's a great intro. I'm not fully invested yet. I want to see the second episode.
Because we have no idea what's at stake.
Right. I know next to nothing about the world.
Yeah.
It at least gave me enough that I want to watch episode 2.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a sign that I might enjoy this.
The animation's great.
Animation's fantastic.
It's really good.
Love it. Love it. The monsters are a little low detail, but that's most Japanese.
There's nice detail in the character designs themselves. Yes. There's a lot of adornment.
I've noticed that a lot of Japanese animation for like monsters that are not humans, they don't really put a lot of detail into them.
They take their time in the characters that exist throughout the show, but the ones that show up for 2 seconds on frame, they don't care about.
Which is okay.
It is what it is.
To compare it to one that does show a lot of detail and care into the monsters that they made, Jujutsu Kaisen.
I will argue that is not correct.
I feel like there's a lot, but we'll save that for later.
I will argue that. All right.
But let's talk about Sakamoto Days.
All right. So the joint pick is the comedy Sakamoto Days.
So Sakamoto Days is the story of the best assassin in all of, basically it seems like this world, Taro Sakamoto. We get this whole background about how Taro was, and I will just call him Sakamoto, how Sakamoto was this amazing assassin. Everything that he did, he could fight tens to hundreds of men at the same time, never got a scratch, and was the best killer ever. Revered as the legendary assassin. And he could have gone like that forever until one day at a convenience store, he met the love of his life. He immediately retires, marries this beautiful woman, and disappears from society. Well, assassin society.
Disappears from the underground.
Nobody knows what happens to him. Like a decade later, was it?
No, it was like 6 years later.
Or 6 years later, one of these people from the underground, Shin, find where Sakamoto is. Goes in, and we find out that Sakamoto's living a almost normal life.
He's living a very comfortable life.
Almost normal. And we'll explain why I say almost here in a second. There's a young boy in his store that draws a bullseye on his window with marker and is trying to show him that he can hit the bullseye. And if he hits a bullseye, Sakamoto will give him I think some candy. Sakamoto is mostly silent, and the boy misses and tries to pick up his arrow, drops it, and spills his ink all over the floor.
Spills the contents of his backpack.
His backpack, but there's a bottle of ink that ends up spilling on a man that walks into Sakamoto's store and onto his white pants. He has like a scar on his chin, all that. This man then ends up trying to beat the shit out of this kid. In this process, the boy then puts a footprint of ink on this rough man's pants, and Sakamoto jumps into action. We initially get a scene where Sakamoto runs a pen through this guy's jugular, but very quickly cut back to reality where it looked like he just tapped the man in the neck and grabbed his arm, and the man was like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. And Shin makes a comment, pen through the jugular? That's pretty messed up. And we find out that Shin is clairvoyant.
Well, and that Shin actually is in the store while all this kerfuffle happened.
Which then Sakamoto immediately imagines him killing Shin. And Shin's like, really? And we get this nice interaction between the two of them where Shin is talking with Sakamoto. And we kind of found out how Sakamoto is involved in this town, how he is the town's basically hero. He goes around doing odd jobs for everybody, is super involved in everything, and is just a great husband too. Shin gives Sakamoto an offer to come back to the life. Sakamoto refuses, and Shin gets the order to kill Sakamoto. He at first kind of argues and then ends up going, okay, fine. Goes back to the store and literally in front of Sakamoto's wife and daughter pulls out a fucking pistol with a silencer and screws it in. So he goes in, tries to kill Sakamoto, shoots the gun, and Sakamoto jumps into action. Spits out a piece of candy to deflect the bullet, uses everything in his store to fight Shin. He uses pieces of candy and a rubber band that gets shot at like mock Jesus.
He Jackie Chan's the shit out of Shin.
Yeah, Jackie Chan's the shit out of him and ends up beating him, knocking him out. Shin wakes up and is treated like family. They feed him, they took care of him, they made sure he recovered. And Shin goes back to the boss that told him to kill Sakamoto and is like, look, I can't do this. I'm not gonna fucking kill him. I'll die in his place. Like, if killing me will remove the hit on his head, I will do it. And the boss is like, sure, go ahead. Forgetting that Shin's clairvoyant, goes, yeah, fuck this idiot, just kill yourself. I'm not going to follow through with that. And Shin ends up turning on them. And Sakamoto, hearing this over a bug that he planted in Shin's gun, shows that he did not give up the assassin lifestyle. He's got guns and all this shit in his store and ends up grabbing a taser. Shin, fighting a lot of them with his clairvoyant powers and his skill, manages to fend off a lot, but ends up getting shot in the leg. And right before he gets executed, Sakamoto shows up and saves Shin and ends up killing the rest of this underground group of baddies. Shin's like, all right, I'm going to leave town. And Sakamoto's like, nope, you're working for me now.
Yeah, hires him on as part-time help.
Hires him on the spot, 800 yen an hour. And that's actually the first time we hear Sakamoto talk.
No, we heard him talk a little bit earlier.
Fair. But
a lot... The only other times he was really talking was through the clairvoyant speech to Shin.
Right. The first time we actually hear him talk.
No, in the beginning we had heard him talk. Sakamoto really doesn't talk.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because the guy who does his voice is one of my favorite voice actors.
Fair. Shin is then stocking at the very end after complaining to Sakamoto about not getting cup ramen on his new uniform. And he goes about stocking, and the young boy that we see earlier is annoying Shin and asking about like what he did in the past. And as he asks Shin what he did in the past, Sakamoto goes, if you tell him, I'll kill you. And then he goes, I was a cleaner of society. And then that's where the episode ends. We kind of get this happy little end send off, and the show is fucking hilarious.
The show's a lot of fun.
I laughed out loud so many times during this episode.
It was so ridiculous. the first time it got me when he was dealing with the guy who was trying to rough up the kid for obviously being a kid. Sakamoto grabs his arm, and then there's the scene of him stabbing him in the neck. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then it cuts. It's like, oh no, he's just holding his arm. That's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
it was fun. It's fun. It's a cute show.
It's cute. It's funny.
It has a very similar feel to Spy Family.
It does.
It's the same kind of happy-go-lucky, like just ridiculous tone to it.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be fun.
I think there's something special about the woman's cooking.
Maybe.
Because the way she was like, oh, it's just like the first time Sakamoto tried my food.
So you got to remember when Shin was trying to convince him to come back to his lifestyle, he's talking about how you've gained all this weight. I don't know what happened to you. You used to just subsist on field rations.
Yeah.
And so I think that was cluing in that Shin lives like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Sakamoto is like his hero.
Yeah. Well, because Shin was his underling.
Yeah.
And so when Shin is eating the fried chicken that she made, that's probably the first home-cooked meal he's had in a long time.
Yeah.
If he's trying to live this aesthetic assassin lifestyle that he thinks that Sakamoto used to live.
Yeah.
That was my take on that. But who knows? Maybe.
I'm going to give this one an A-. I'm
going to give it a B.
I really liked the comedic aspect of it. It was very funny for me.
The thing that I feared until they just wiped out that group of bad people was I feared that it was just going to be this organization is just going to keep sending people to Sakamoto.
Yeah.
And then that's going to get repetitive and boring.
No, Sakamoto just took care of them right away.
They killed all of them. So now we have no idea what the next plot point is going to be, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah. It was really funny though.
Compared to Übel Blatt and Zenshu.
Oh, God, there was such a tone difference.
And the artwork is way less quality.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but man, it's compared to Zenshu and Übel Blatt, this is a lower quality artwork and design.
Right.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But man, it was so noticeable after watching it after those two that are very beautifully animated.
So I watched Zenshu, and then I'd watched Sakamoto Days.
Oh, okay.
And then I watched Übel Blatt.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like in the middle for me,
Got
just because I had to switch between like 3 different streaming services to watch all the fucking shows that we
Fair.
needed to watch
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
week. And so there was a lot of, I picked what I had for the tabs open.
Yep.
And because I watched Sakamoto and Orb together.
Okay. Yeah, because they're both on Netflix.
Both on Netflix.
Yep.
And then I maybe didn't notice the stark difference right away.
Yeah.
But now that you mention it, yeah.
And not that it's a bad thing, but it's also a little disappointing too.
It does
would
have
been
the
nice
lowest.
for them to put a little bit more effort into it.
It does have the lowest animation quality of the 3 that we picked this season. But
it's not like the thing that really got me.
I think the comedy and the actual substance of it makes up for that.
The way they have them holding the guns is so unnatural.
Yeah.
Like their stance, it's like, did they just not reference a movie? Why do they look like that? It looks so weird. Anyways, that's me being nitpicky. It's fun. I think I suspected coming into it that Sakamoto was the kind of silent character, which is kind of a shame because I love the voice actor. He's the guy, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy who does Gintoki from Gintama, and he's fun. All right, so that's the 3 shows for the winter season.
Some great picks.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun season with these 3 shows.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah.
The season in general is just really, really solid. There's a lot of great shows out this season that I'm excited to watch.
There's some interesting shows out this season. A couple of surprising things that I'm watching. Mostly, romance and slice of life. I don't know how much more we can say about it because we pretty much went through all of them.
Yeah, we were in the trenches.
All 3 of them share the common idea of we don't know what's going to happen next. We cannot predict what place the story is going to take. First episodes, that's pretty common.
Yeah, I think for wrap up this week, we should ask the viewers what show they're currently watching this season.
What's the series that you're enjoying the most or you have anticipated the most for the season?
And if you're watching any of these shows along with us, give us your opinions about the first either 2 episodes of Zenshu or the first episode of Sakamoto or Übel Blatt.
You know what I think my pick for the season is going to be?
What?
Apothecary Diaries.
Apothecary Diaries. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch it.
That first episode was so good.
I still gotta watch it.
Yeah,
Don't spoil anything or I'll break your kneecaps.
I'm not going to spoil anything. It was so good. All right. Well, thank you for listening. The podcast has switched to Fridays, as you've perhaps discovered, as we are extending the discussions on Orb and dropping those episodes on Wednesdays.
As always, remember to check out our socials, subscribe, comment, like if you're on YouTube, or subscribe to our podcast on any other of the streaming services. As always, please join our Discord. That way we can have extended discussions about any of the shows that we're watching or just shows that you want to see if we've seen and talk with us about.
Yep.
We always like to have interaction from our community and always welcome you guys reaching out and talking to us. Other than that, I don't think there's really anything else to cover in this inaugural episode of 2025.
Nope. All right. Thanks again, and we will see you guys next time.